I was 63 years old, had recently retired from my long teaching career, and lived in a quiet, quaint house on the outskirts of town. I had embraced a slower and more peaceful life. My husband had passed away 5 years ago, and since then, I found solace in a predictable routine: gardening, reading, and an occasional outing with a few close friends. The house had become silent, and although I missed company, I had accepted my position in life. It was simple, but it suited me. Yet, one morning, my world did another about-face when my stepson Alex called me. One day, Alex was 22 years old, fresh out of college, trying to establish himself in the competitive field of graphic design. He intended to launch his career in the city, but he struggled to find a stable job. For this reason, he also had trouble paying the rent. I hadn't heard from Alex in a while. He hadn't kept in touch after his father's death, and we had never been particularly close. We were fine, but there was always something a little formal between us. When he called, his voice stopped, as if he didn't know how to do it. Approaching what he meant, "Hey, Mara," he started. "I know it's been a while, but I need to ask for a favor." I could feel the weight in his words before he could even wrap up the sentence. He was in a difficult situation, and I intuitively knew what he would say after explaining his situation. I didn't hesitate. "Of course, Alex. You can stay with me for as long as you need until you find a stable job and a place of your own." The words escaped so easily, but nervousness gnawed at me. What would it be like to have someone young, especially a man, living under my roof again? I hadn't shared my space with anyone in years, and this thought made me uneasy. Nevertheless, I prepared myself for his coming. The morning Alex was supposed to show up at my house, I found myself busy in the guest room, making sure everything was perfect. I dusted the pillows and dusted the shelves, filling the bathroom with clean towels. As time passed, as the hours dragged on, I felt my discomfort growing. It wasn't just about having a guest at home. It was a question of disrupting the routine that had kept me stable for years. Later, when Alex finally pulled into his battered old car, I waited for him on the porch. It had been a long time since I had seen him, and when he got out of the car, taken aback, he was no longer a weird teenager. He was tall and broad-shouldered, and an air of newfound confidence seemed to radiate from him. "Hey, Mara," he said with a smile that was both familiar and yet strange. He reached out to me and hugged me. Its smell smelled of wood and freshness, catching me off guard. "Welcome," I said, feeling momentarily out of place. I hope that's what he said, brushing it off like hell. "Thank you for allowing me to stay here." Those first few days were quiet, surviving on almost nothing. Alex would simply stay in his room or go out looking for a job, and I made a conscious effort to leave him alone, not wanting to be the bossy mother-in-law. But slowly the house began to feel different. There was just this energy that wasn't there before, and I couldn't help but notice little things. How Alex smiled at me through the dining table, or how he lingered in the kitchen. One evening, while he was talking to me about his day, something happened. It was late, and I had gone to bed early, as usual. The house was quiet and silent, and I heard the faint stream from the door of my room. Groggy, I turned around to see Alex standing in the doorway. "Alex?" I mumbled low, my voice thick in sleep. "Everything's fine?" He walked further into the room, his tall figure silhouetted against the dim light of the corridors. There was something different about her posture, a vulnerability that I had never seen before. "I couldn't sleep," he said softly. I got up and moved closer to the bed, sitting up and trying to rub the drowsiness out of my eyes. "Is there something wrong?" He hesitated for a moment before sitting on the edge of the bed. I could feel the mattress sinking under his weight. The space between us was filled with an eerie tension. "I don't know," he sighed. "I guess I just feel a little lost." There was a trap in his voice that tore my heart. Despite all his external confidence, Alex was still so young, still figuring things out. Without thinking, I reached out and gently put my hand on his arm, and offering a small gesture of comfort. "It'll be okay," I whispered. "Everyone is going through difficult times." For a moment, our eyes met, and the air between us seemed to thicken. I don't know how else to explain it, but something had changed. I should have walked away. I should have said something to dissipate the tension, but instead, I let my hand linger on her arm a longer beat than necessary. "Thank you, Mara," he said in a low voice, barely above a whisper. I nodded, not knowing what to say. He stood up slowly, his gaze staring at mine for a moment. Longer, before I turned around and went back to her room. As the door closed behind me, I lay down, my heart pounding. What was I supposed to think of this moment we had just shared? Have I read too much in it, or has something really changed between us? The next morning, everything seemed normal. Alex was as usual, chatting with me over breakfast about his job search and weekend plans, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Every time we passed through the hallway, his hand brushed against him. His eyes lingered on mine, where he held my gaze for a second too long. Those moments were light, but it was enough for me to really question what was going on. The days turned into weeks, and the tension between us kept rising. One night, a few weeks after Alex moved in, we found ourselves sitting together on the couch, watching TV. While the show was playing in the background, we talked about everything and nothing: his job search, all the places he had applied, the difficulties he had faced in breaking into his industry. The conversation continued, naturally, but beneath it all there was an undercurrent of the unsaid that was not said until, at some point in the night, Alex's hand brushed against mine, and this time neither of us walked away. Instead, I found myself leaning over him, feeling his warmth against my side. It was a quiet and intimate moment, a moment that seemed both right and wrong at the same time. We sat there for what felt like hours, the tension between us palpable. I knew we had crossed a line that couldn't be easily crossed, but there was a part of me, buried beneath years of loneliness and disbelief, a grief that refused to back down. I was going to feel something again, wasn't I? Even if it was unconventional, even if it was messy. As the weeks passed, Alex and I continued to tiptoe, regardless of this new dynamic between us. We never talked about it, but it was there in the way we moved around each other, in the way our conversations became more personal, more intimate. Then night came, everything changed. Alex had just returned from a job interview, with a smile on his face. "I think it went well," he said, as he left his bag near the door. "They seemed interested. I'll know by the end of the week." "It's amazing," I replied, sincerely happy for him that night. We celebrated our order. We ordered takeout, opened a bottle of wine, and spent the evening talking about his future, his excitement for what was to come. The conversation flowed easily, the wine loosening our inhibitions as the night wore on. The subject moved towards us, towards what was going on between us. "I don't know what it is, Mara," Alex said, his eyes meeting mine. "Across the table, but I can't pretend he's not there." I turned away, my heart pounding, complicated, I thought. My mind was already racing. I finally whispered, "I know." He had said it softly, but I also know that I care about you more than I should, and I want to be honest about that. His words seemed to hang in thin air, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't know what to say. It wasn't supposed to happen, but we were there. "I care about you," to Alex. I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But we cannot rush things. We have to be careful." He nodded, a look of relief on his face. "We can take it easy," he whispered. "We will find out together in the coming weeks." Alex and I negotiated this delicate balance between us. We learned to move forward carefully, to respect the limits we had set, but also to let in the connection we found. It wasn't easy. Somehow we managed to make it work. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.